All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. And about 4 years ago, in November of 2021, I purchased my very first laser here in the shack and started my adventure into a laser business. That first laser was a 10-watt open frame diode machine, and I had a simple flatbed roller that I used to do tumblers and other things of cylindrical shape for people to try to get my little side hustle going. Well, a lot has changed here in the shack, but a lot of the fundamentals are still the same. But today, I'm going to show you guys how to take a 10-watt laser and this chuck rotary from Creality, and we're going to make a engraved tumbler using a 10-watt diode. Now, like I said, a lot has changed here in the shack. It's been a while since I've used a 10-watt open frame to do tumblers, but from what I can tell from the machine, from the rotary, which is a chuck, which is far better than a flatbed roller, this should be pretty simple. So if you want to see the tips and some of the little methods that I use to make sure that I do these things right every time, stick around and we're going to knock out a tumbler. All right, so before we get started, guys, this is the particular rotary that we're going to be using. This machine was shipped to me by Creality, the machine as well as the rotary, and this is the one we're going to be using. It's fairly robust. I do like the size of it. It comes with everything you need to safely engrave tumblers with this machine, because by doing the tumblers, you're going to have to remove the bottom plate of the machine. So be sure to use the included glasses that come with it. And so I'm going to show you the things that you're going to need to get from the box in order to do this job. All right, so this is the chuck itself, and it is pretty beefy. It's a little more substantial, a little more solid than what I had expected for this machine. But hey, that's good. We don't have to worry about anything being underpowered. So you'll also have this little piece here. This attaches to the rotary that you can use it to kind of offset things. If you've got something that's a little nose heavy and it's trying to pull down, you can use this to try to support it and keep it turning on its center without having any wobble. So we may or may not need that, but we're going to put that to the side for right now. All right, one of the most important things that you're going to need is going to be these glasses. All right, if you don't use these, or if you don't have these, or maybe you've lost them, be sure to wear some type of glasses, because by opening the bottom of the machine, it's no longer going to be that great and wonderful class 1, because the laser light can escape through the bottom by reflection, who knows. But safety first, so you're going to want to wear either these or similar glasses. All right, another crucial part of this operation is going to be the extension feet. Now, the extension feet that Creality sent with the machine, or with the rotary, have 3 sections. They have 2 short sections and a longer section. So, not exactly sure which setup we're going to need to go with. We're going to need to get it going and get everything set up, and we'll go from there to decide on that. Other than that, in the box with the rotary, there's a owner's manual, user's manual. We're going to need some information from there later for the computer, so we're going to set that to the side. And then you've got Allen wrench and a couple of screws, as well as these little pieces here, which are basically fingers for holding odd shaped things. You can do rings with those. You can do the arm bands. There's a lot of different uses for those, but we're not going to be using them today for the tumbler. We're just going to be using the plastic claws that are on there already. And they also send you this little flexible measuring apparatus for measuring around the tumblers. Now, that's something you're going to need, whether you use this one or one you already have. It doesn't matter, but you're going to need some way to measure the tumbler. And of course, you're going to need a tumbler. So let's move over to the machine. There's a little bit of prep work to do first time you're setting this up with the rotary, and so we're going to do that and get this show on the road. Okay, so to start with, there's 2 things that I recommend you getting. Once you've got your machine set up and you're ready to go, there's a little preparation we need to do. The first thing that you're going to want to do is remove all the cabling and stuff from the machine. This is going to do 2 things. One, it's going to make sure that the machine's not powered on, and 2, it's going to make really sure that in moving the machine around, you don't end up breaking any of your cabling. So that's what I'm going to do, is just unplug all the cables from the machine And it's probably not a bad idea to go ahead and remove the key as well so you don't break it in the event that you were to let the machine slide or fall. The next step is either bring your own 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench or use one of the ones in the toolkit. And I would get one of the little bags that you've, maybe have around your shop to put some screws in, because there's 4 screws that we're gonna have to take out of the machine in order to convert it from honeycomb base engraving over to the chuck. So let me show you what that looks like. All right, so when you open the machine right here, you're going to, well, first of all, if you have the honeycomb, you can grab this little bar right here and pull this guy out of there, because we're not going to be needing the honeycomb in there for anything we're going to be doing today. Then you'll have just the little crumb tray here, and you'll notice that there's 4 screws positioned, 2 on either side of this little honeycomb plate here, or this little cutting surface. So we're going to need to remove those. I'll be using just my standard 2.5 millimeter Allen screwdriver, but you can use one of the ones from the kit as well. So we're going to take those out real quick. All right, as I said, I would probably take those 4 screws and secure those somewhere in a little bag so that you'll know where they are. You shouldn't need them anymore because, the crumb tray now can come out and you can put it back. But in the event that you need to transport the machine or ship it or anything like that, these would be handy to be able to put back in there. So once you take those 4 screws out, the plate for the crumb tray simply lifts and comes out the front of the machine, and we are ready to move on to extending the legs in the next step. All right, so the next step, we're gonna need these guys. These are the leg extensions, and I will say, I don't know exactly how long I'm gonna need these to be. So we're just gonna put them on there as is with all 3 pieces together, and if needed, we can adjust from there. So let's get started. Now, the way that I recommend you do this is to simply close the doors on the machine. Like I said, we've already disconnected all of our cabling. You can actually leave the exhaust connected to the machine. There is nothing on the left side of the machine that could be damaged. You may want to put a towel or something like that down if you're concerned about getting some scratches or anything on the machine. But what I would do is just tip the machine over to the left and stand it on that other edge over there. Like I said, there's no buttons, there's nothing over there to hurt anything, and it should sit there flat and securely so that you don't have to be fumbling with it while you're trying to do this. Now, you've got these little rubber feet right here on the machine from the factory. Those simply unscrew. It's like a little thumb screw, and what you're going to want to do is screw them back onto the leg extensions. And again, I'm guessing we're probably going to need all of the extensions, because if you look compared to the rotary, I think we're going to be good using full capacity. So that's what we're going to run to start with. I can always adjust if needed. And so then you just screw this back into the machine. And there's 4 of them, so it's literally repeat and rinse. Just pull the rubber foot off, screw it onto the leg extension, and then put it back onto the machine as one piece. Like I said, it's not terribly difficult. They do just unscrew and screw back on there. So I'm going to run through these, get all of these done, and then that's basically this step, is simply unscrewing and screwing these 4 legs. So this is going to be the bulk of the work is going to be done here in just a second, and then we'll be ready to go forward with the engraving. Now, I will point out, the bottom of this machine is basically one kind of molded piece of metal. So there's not a lot of angle iron or extrusions or anything like that in here. This is just one piece of metal, like a little pan that the machine's built in, which is pretty cool. So now, what I'm going to do, just to kind of make sure I don't bend these legs, because these aren't, I mean, they're pretty sturdy, but they're not going to take the twisting force too well. So I'm going to kind of lift the machine up from the right side by this metal panel, and just going to lay it back over. And once you do that, you've got the riser legs on there, and the machine is now tall enough that you can take your rotary and you can set it inside the work area. All right, so I did a little bit of measuring, and turns out the Z-axis can come down far enough that the current height of the legs is going to work. And like I said, I haven't done anything with this, guys. This is the first time I've used this rotary, and I just realized, because I thought that this little adjustment here was going to be a tilt for the chuck, but apparently it is not. Apparently this angle here is static. I can't change it. What I like to do is and if you'll look at this, I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. See how this tumbler has the taper going downhill right there? That's going to create inconsistencies and create an issue with the engraving. So we're going to have to try to get this surface as flat with the axis of the machine as is possible. And I was really thinking, from looking at this thing, there was going to be an angle adjustment. I should have had a clue, though, when I realized there was no little small level. A lot of times these machines, they'll send you a little small level with the rotary so that you can adjust the cant of the engrave. Because if not, if I engrave it like this, we're going to have a shorter focal distance here than we do down here, which could spell disaster, especially if your settings aren't exactly right for the entire engrave. So we're going to have to adapt to that, but I've got another little fix that I'm going to be doing as well. So let me get to work, and I'll be right back. All right, so I got a little bit of a science experiment set up to explain this process to you guys and what I'm looking for. So I'm going to switch over to the other camera, but I'm going to talk you through what I'm doing over here, because we got to get this thing level if we want the best results we can get. So let's get started. So as you can see, illustrated by the little tiny level that I have here, this tumbler is nowhere near level. And typically what I would want is to loosen this chuck and rotate this up to try to get this surface level. But this one doesn't have that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to come up with a way of raising this thing up until we can get it close to level. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want it pretty close. So I've got some little pieces of scrap material, and I'm basically just going to put scotches under the front of this, and I'm going to push these little scotches back toward the back, and you'll see that as I do, it's raising it up to where, okay, now we've got kind of a level plane, a level work area. That's what we want for the engrave. So what we've got to do is we've got to make sure we have as flat and as level of a surface as possible. And it's not flat or level according to the curvature of the earth per se, but according to the axis of the machine. So we want the axis of the machine and the surface of this tumbler right here consistent. We want the distance between them consistent, because if not, you're going to have, if we do it this way, if we take these away and we set it like it is, the thickness that we raise that this far, that's how much further the beam of the laser is going to have to come down to hit here versus over here. And that's going to create some issues with a faint engrave possibly here, overburning up top, trying to get it adjusted. It's just going to create a host of issues. And so what we want to do is try to get this set up to where our focus is about there. So that's about where we want it. All right, so another issue that we've got to overcome, guys, is going to be once we put this rotary in here and we get everything lined up perfectly, because we want the rotary and the tumbler, we want it to be straight with the gantry of the machine, because if not, your engrave is going to look like it's running uphill or downhill on the tumbler. So you've got to make sure that this is square. It has to be square with the machine, and it has to be on the same plane as the axis of the laser, because if not, like I said, it's going to be running sideways. So this is another obstacle that we have, which this is one that I have had many times before with lots of other machines. This is not something that Creality is the only one that has this issue. So luckily, over the years, I have developed systems, and I was able to modify one of my existing systems somewhat, just take the idea and run with it. And I've created this little guy right here. Now, what this is going to do is this indexes off of the two front legs of the machine to make sure that once I set the rotary down in there, it can't shift and twist. And because I created this file on a computer, I know that as long as these legs are square with the machine, this jig will be square with the machine as well. And so I created this little jig. It's going to sit in here, and this will come around and connect to the side of the machine where it plugs in. So then we just need to kind of make sure our cable stays out of the way. I wish they'd give us a few more inches of cable, but we're good there. So now the issue that we had of making sure that the laser gantry and the tumbler were in alignment, we got that handled. That is fixed. So now we just have to adapt it to where we can get the level set the way it needs to be. So I'm going to change the camera angle, and we're going to work on that little obstacle real quick. All right, so I've got everything set up, and as you can see, guys, another little thing we've got to make sure we don't mess up is I've got to have the Z-axis high enough as to not connect with the little grip here. Now, you could rotate the tumbler and grab it from the bottom end, and that would put it at a lower level. So if you wanted to do that, you could. Me personally, I find that I get the best grip on the larger end because you've got a bigger area to hold, and it just seems to hold better that way. Plus, typically I keep my designs, you know, inside a certain margin anyway, so I'm not really concerned with that. But as you can see, we've got everything in there, got it set up, but we are nowhere near being level. So you can do this a couple of different ways. Like I said, I've got my little jig panel in there. I could shove these little pieces of wood back under there and raise that up, and that would work. Or another method that I could use to try to keep things in place without getting too involved is raise it up. I'm just going to put this little ruler right here underneath the bottom of the rotary. I'm going to kind of use this ruler as a bit of a bridge across the hole that I created in that jig panel, and I'm going to move that towards the motor of the rotary until it raises it up to where it is mostly level. So that looks pretty good right there. Now you can see I've got the back and the front of this thing is kind of it's kind of raised up pretty high there. So, but all of the weight's on this end. So I think we're pretty good as far as it moving during an engrave. But what I would recommend is maybe some painter's tape back here on this end of it as well as on the ruler, just to kind of keep things in place. So as you guessed, I'll be using my green painter's tape to do a little redneck engineering here. And so I'm going to tape across the back of my little jig plate and just up here towards the ruler just to keep everything stuck where it is. And I'm just going to put that one little strip because I don't see this being a big problem. It's held pretty good with that one strip, but you could put one on the other side as well. And now you'll see that we're looking pretty level right there. So I think I'm good to proceed at this point. So now let's look at the gantry compared to the machine, and you'll see I'm still a little close to that. But remember, we still have to set our focus. So this is the focus block. So what I did notice earlier is as long as I set the focus +3, which is what I like to do on tumblers anyway, we should have plenty of clearance. So like right there is where the focus should be set according to the book. But I like to come up a little more just to make sure with tumblers. If you get it too focused with tumblers, you can see some lines. So I'm going to raise it up to about right there. So you can see probably not 3, but I'm at least another 2.5 millimeters high on my focus. And now I've got plenty of clearance from the chuck, but we're at that sweet spot, which is, to me, is around 3 millimeters high with our focus. So I'm going to make sure I got the little Z-axis adjustment screw tight there, and we're good on that. Everything is secure. Doesn't look like anything's going to move. All right, guys. So for the next step, we're going to move over to the software aspect of things. I have tried using this this particular setup with Lightburn. Didn't have any success. There's probably some macros or something that I'm missing. The instructions do not specifically show this machine being used with Lightburn. It shows the older Falcons, but there is no mention of this particular machine. So I think the Lightburn use of it, although it does say that it is capable, I think it's going to be limited to machines, the older variety machines where you can unplug the Y-axis. Because with this machine, you cannot unplug the Y-axis. And so therefore, you plug it into the side and it does work in here, but it does not work in Lightburn. So first step, we're going to go new project. This again is in the Falcon software. First thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we are on rotary processing and either roller or chuck. In this case, we've got a chuck. So I'm going to select chuck. Then it's going to open up some other options down here. We are going to be running current position. So we're going to set current position, dead center, auto plan, the perimeter. Like I said, 85 millimeters is going to be our perimeter here. Or if you know the our diameter, if you know the perimeter, which would be, like, let's say if it was 270, it will automatically calculate the other. So as long as you know one of these or the other, you're good. You don't have to have both. And then, of course, you got to have your machine connected. And so we're good to go on that. Now, I've never done tumblers on this machine. However, I have done them. I'm going to draw a little circle right here. I have done them on other machines of the 10-watt power output. So I've got a pretty good idea of where I want to go with this. So I'm going to go with 3,000 millimeter. Well, let's go, no, not 3,000. I don't know how that got there. 6,000 millimeters per minute would equal 100. So I'm going to go with like 4,000 millimeters per minute, and we're going to run 100% power. That's about the equivalent to what I would run typically on a 10-watt machine. So we're going to try that. I've got the engrave sent over up to the machine, and now I'm going to hit the frame button. I'm going to turn the other camera on so you guys can see what's going on in there. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to frame this little circle that I drew here and just make sure everything works. So there we go. That is a what is that, a 20 millimeter circle that I drew? 25. Let's move that down to 20. So we'll do 20 dead on. That makes it easier, because what I'm going to do, I'm pretty sure with using their software, I'm not as concerned about the steps being properly adjusted. So we got that one set for 20 by 20. I'm going to frame it again. All right, making sure we got our glasses on. So let me grab my glasses. This is where, having the bottom out of this machine, you definitely got to take extra precautions. So you put those on, and we're going to start this. Like I said, I'm going to be running 4,000 millimeters a second, 100% power. Their software is a little weird, so let me look and see if I can see the LPI or whatever. Here it is. The interval is 0.10. Overscan is 2.5. So we're going to go with it and see what happens. So here we are. Like I said, if everything works out the way that it should, we should have a nice engraving, and it should be 20 millimeters. And the thing that you got to remember when you're doing tumblers is you're marking the outside of this tumbler. I need to turn some ventilation on. You're marking the outside of this tumbler. So it's going to kind of be like you're not going to be able to measure it typical way that you would measure it. You're either going to need to use a flexible ruler that wraps around the tumbler, or if you don't have one of those, which hopefully you do, you can take a piece of paper, mark the size of it on a piece of paper, holding it on top of the tumbler, and then measure your markings. That does work as well. But I would recommend, if you don't already have one, get a seamstress measurer, or use the one that comes with this chuck. Now, I'm hoping the settings aren't too hot. Like I said, 10-watt machines aren't something I use a lot of these days. So this was a educated guess at best on the settings. So I'll check back with you here in just a few minutes once it gets done. I'm just gonna let this play out. All right, so the engrave has completed. We're gonna get that out of there, and I'm gonna clean it up, look at it, see if the power setting was accurate, make sure my shape is the correct size. If it is, we're gonna move on to engraving a tumbler. So let's get it out of there and check it. Now, the one thing that I will tell you is, I didn't mention this earlier, but always make sure that the laser is directly in the center of your tumbler when you're doing these, because if you get it off to the side, you're not gonna get the full effectiveness of the laser. So there's our engrave. It doesn't look really impressive until I clean it. Let me get my cleaning supplies. So in case you haven't watched one of my videos on tumblers previously, cleaning supplies that I'm going to be using is going to be a cheap magic eraser, some isopropyl alcohol, and of course a microfiber cloth. So with the tumbler, like I said, it's hard to tell when you first take them off there. You may not think you got a good engrave, but once you clean it, you may find that you actually did. So spray a little rubbing alcohol on there, and I'm just gonna lightly brush it with the magic eraser. You don't want to bear down too hard. Magic erasers are a little abrasive and can mark the tumbler if you're not careful. So get a little more marking, a little more. Okay, we're gonna have to, more than likely, looks like we're gonna have to take our lines up just a little bit. I'm gonna take my dry cloth now and just kind of polish it off with that. Not liking the looks of that. That's, let me take a picture. And this is a little cheat. Feel free to use this one too. Especially if you have an iPhone, get you some nice lighting. Take a nice little close-up picture of your engraving, and you can see what's going on a little better. So when I zoom this up, you can see there, I've got some little tiny lines. This is going to be caused by one of two things. Either my LPI is not wide enough. Yeah, I think that's what it's going to be. I need to come in a little tighter with that, or I need to defocus a little more. So it could be either at this point. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the lines per inch. I'm going to make it a little tighter, and we'll look at that and see if that fixes it. And if not, then we'll raise the focus. But I'm thinking the 0.1 with this little 06 beam, I think that might be a bit much. So let's try that. All right, so all I'm going to do is go into the software here. It was set to a 0.10 interval. With this beam being 0.06, I think that's a bit wide. So I think that is definitely going to be a problem. So what we're going to do is, knowing that the beam of this machine is a 0.06, and also knowing that I've got the focus raised a little bit, I think if I set this machine to 0, we'll say 0.5, I think I'm going to be okay. I think I'm going to get enough overlap to get a nice smooth burn. So I'm going to give that a try. That's going to be twice as many lines per inch as what we have currently, because we've got a 0.10 now. So if we do a 0.05, hopefully that clears up the problem. So we'll change that to 0.05. We'll leave the overscan the same. Just going to do a quick frame. Make sure everything's connected the way it should be. Glasses on. And now we wait. All right, it's finishing up. And so now we get to look once again and see how we did. Like I said, I did no pre-testing for this, guys. So this is straight up as raw as it gets on this little job here, on this testing. So same process. Spray it a little bit. Hit it with the magic eraser. I'll be honest with you, I think I'm marking the metal now. So I think I got the lines right, but I think I may be a little too hot. The beam size may be a a little tighter than what I was expecting. That is looking very, very tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a little aggressive here and kind of wipe it with this magic eraser a little more, just to see if this is a little bit of leave or if it's marking the metal. I think it's marking the metal. So there we go. All right, so I'm gonna throw this over here so you guys can see it a little better. So yeah, it appears that I'm still having some leave, even with that setting. So we're gonna turn the I'm gonna turn the focus. I'm gonna raise the focus a little bit because I think I've kind of got the LPI is a little, like you can see there's some lines in there like it's leaving material. So I think the LPI still needs to go up, or either I need to raise the focus. I'm going to go with raise the focus to widen the beam and also keep it from marking it. So maybe with this module, my typical 3mm raise wasn't enough. So I'm going to raise it another 3mm, maybe even speed it up a little bit, because it does look like it might be getting it too hot in the actual metal. And we'll run it again. So more testing, guys. Bear with me. We'll get some good results eventually. All right, so I did a few things. I raised the focus up about 2 more millimeters to give me a little bit of a wider beam. I also took and cut the line interval down to 0.03 millimeters, which is pretty intense. And I've also sped it up to about 6,000 millimeters a second, or millimeters a minute, so that, because I think there's a little bit of overburn actually going on in the metal. So this is, like I said, probably at this point I should have just went ahead and done a speed and power test. But sometimes I just like doing the whack-a-mole with it, see what happens. So let's push this one off and let's check it out. All right, fingers crossed, guys. Fingers crossed. So a lot of times it does take a few minutes to get the perfect settings. And that is why I tell you guys, if you ask somebody for their settings, even with all the experience that I have at doing these with various different machines, it's still a lot of times, it's a guessing game. I think we got it that time. Starting to look pretty nice there. So we'll rinse this off real good. And we'll look and see what we got. Maybe a bit hot. So I think I could actually go a little faster because I've got a little brassy look on the engrave. But yeah, look at that. So just so you guys can see it a little better, I'll take you another picture. It does look a little squished, but I think that is going to be because of the taper. I'm going to go ahead and confirm that and measure it, but other than that, I think that looks good. We're going to go a little faster. I'm going to move my speed up just a little bit because I do have, if you look real careful, I don't know if y'all can see it or not, it's a little brassy compared to the ends of the tumbler. So I want to try to match. I wanted that silver, unpolished, that polished silver look. So it's a little brassy. So that's going to let me know that I'm probably a little too hot. So I'm going to do a little bit of measuring, calculations, just to make sure everything's working out good. I think it is. I think we're good. And then we're going to move forward with the design. So let's get started. All right, I know you guys are probably sick and tired of all my DIY painter tape hacks. But if you take a piece of painter's tape and you're trying to measure this to confirm your size, stick it to it, take you a pencil with a real sharp point, and you can mark the edge of the material on both sides. Like, you can get it really precise this way. And then when you mark it, and then you just peel that off, stick it to something flat and measure that line, and voila, there you go. So that's what we're going to do. All right, so after a couple more tries, guys, I think I finally got the settings correct. This little module is a little hotter than what I had expected. This last one, I've ran it up to 14,000 millimeters per second to get away from that brassiness. And we'll try to show you. Oh yeah, got it going now. So I found my settings that I want to run with, but I want to show this to you just so you have an idea. You can see there the silver in the engrave matches the top and the bottom pretty well. That's that brassy shine that I was going to telling you about. And I'll take a picture of this, and that way I can put it over there in editing and show you exactly what I'm talking about as far as the brassiness goes. It's hard to detect it with a camera, but I'll give it my best try. But when you look at these two, I don't know how well it's going to show in the camera. Like I said, the top one there is really silvery, whereas those almost have like that brass finish. They got like a little bit of a darker color to them. If you see that, you're getting it too hot. A blue diode can mark stainless steel, and that's kind of like what you would traditionally get just doing stainless steel marking, unless you went really slow to try to get that deep dark gray. So yeah, 14,000 millimeters per minute seems to be my spot there. And just to recap for you guys, that's going to be a 0.03 millimeters for the interval using the Falcon software. And we've raised the focus a total of probably close to 5 millimeters from where it would normally be for 1 to 3 millimeter material. So that's a pretty good lift for it to be able to get the good results. But those results compared to where we started, we kind of started over here with a lot of the gray still there, discoloration, and then I went around on this side and started with those two on the bottom and ended up there. So definitely an improvement, and that's those settings right there will be my target. So let's get this tumbler, which is one of my practice tumblers. Never throw these away. You can tape them up, you can do what you need to and use them for practice once doing grids and so forth. But I'm going to put these guys away. I'm going to get us an actual tumbler, and we're going to make one. So let's get it set up. All right, so the good deal is I keep a few extra tumblers on hand. This is actually the same exact tumbler from the same batch as that practice one there. I buy them by the case. Usually they come like 12 to a little box or case or whatever. And so we're going to take this one, and I don't really need any more tumblers around here around the shop. I've got plenty. Every time I make tumblers to do a video, I end up with more and more tumblers. So I think what I'm going to do with this one, my wife just recently got a new job with the city of Clanton, which is coincidentally where I used to work. So I think what I'm going to do is take and export the logo for the city of Clanton and make her a tumbler for her work. So yeah, I think that's what we're going to do with the black. It'll look pretty cool. It's going to be, we're going to set it up to where it's going to be not a full wrap, but a two-sided engrave. So that'll be pretty cool. So let's get the graphic exported, and I'll show you how to set it up over here in the software from Creality. All right, so over here in the Falcon software, I am now going to import this file. I saved it on a drive on my network, so I'm going to bring that in. This is the graphic that I have. So it obviously did not want to bring it in the size that I need it and rotate it the way that I want it. So what we've got to do now is I'm going to make sure that I've got this set to this layer, 12,000 millimeters a second. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this little guy. That's going to put my dot being in the center of the logo. But we've got to, first thing I want to do is I'm going to group all of this. Okay, it's already grouped it, so we don't have to do that. So I'm going to rotate this to the left, and I want to put the top, of the tumbler with the top of the graphic, and the way the tumbler's sitting in there is like this. Now, one thing that you're going to need to know to move forward with this is I only have a limited amount of space on the tumbler. I want to do 2 of them. So by using the measurements that we already have right here, we know that to completely wrap this tumbler would be 267 millimeters. That's this number right here. So if I create a rectangle that is 267 millimeters, and I'm going to take this one and I'm going to move it over to, we'll just use like a little blue line, but we're going to change this to a line engraving. and I'm going to turn it off in their software. Well, where did it go? So, okay, does it not show if I turn it off? Apparently it doesn't show if I turn it off. So we'll leave it on for right now. So I'm going to set that for 267. I need that to be the height of this guy. So I'm going to come over here to the height and set it at 267. I'm not going to worry about the width just yet. So we're going to go ahead and set that 267 on the height on this little rectangle here. Now I'm going to go ahead and unlock it, because what I also need to know is how much real estate do I have from the top to the bottom of the tumbler. How much room do I have there? And I'm measuring it, and it's 140 millimeters. So that area is going to be, my width needs to be 140. So, and that is literally the entire powder coated surface of this tumbler. So now that I've got that done, this is the engraving. Basically, this is going to be what I'm going to engrave. Is going to be this little area here. So my logo can only be at most half of this right here. So you're looking at 267, and my height is going to have to be 140 to stay on here. So if I set this, let's say 120, that'll put me having a good size logo on here without it being too large. So I'm going to set, don't forget to lock your aspect ratio. So I'm going to lock the aspect ratio. Can you tell I don't use other softwares typically? All right, lock the aspect ratios, set that to 120, and we're good to go. So here what I'm going to end up doing is I want to put one logo on one side and one logo on the other. So the way that you can go about doing that is to put them, take this box here if you want, and you can split the size of this outer box. So if we take half of this, you're going to be looking at 133. So if I take this rectangle here, it's going to generate me another one if I can get it selected. So we'll change this one to, we'll unlock that, and we'll change this to 133. So I got two of them now. Put those two together. And I'm not used to this software either, guys. So it's kind of whooping me a little bit because I am not accustomed to this software at all. So I'm gonna select that one. See if I can hold shift. Select the other one. Okay, maybe I just need to drag and see if it'll give me brackets here. Okay, it gives me brackets. Drop that one. I don't know that I'm going to want these to be 120 though. I'm going to be honest with you. That looks like it might be a bit large. So I think what I'm going to do, let's change this to C. Let's do 80. So apparently if you unlock the aspect ratio on one item, it carries over. Not used to that. So I got that one set to 80. Got that one set to 80. One thing that I will tell you is a lot of times with these tumblers, when you do a round object, you're gonna see that it's gonna look squished if you don't add some to it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make this, I'm gonna say 85. So with the aspect ratio unlocked, I'm gonna change the height, not the width, I about messed up, the height to 85, which is going to stretch it a little bit. But what's going to end up happening is that's going to help overcome that obstacle, that visual look of it being squished. That little bit, that 5 millimeters, which is not a lot, is going to help make this thing look round when it's printed. And there's some math for that, but we're just going to go with 80 by 85. So you math gurus out there can do the math on that, but that's typically with these tumblers, like I said, a 5 millimeter difference in the stretch should be enough. So we've got this set to, what did we end up going with earlier? Interval is still 0.03, so we're good on that. I do not need this layer anymore. And so what I'm going to do now, though, is I do want to take and change the point of origin. I do want to change that to be there. Like, that's the way that I want this laid out. So I need a way to turn that off. It's okay, that's not going to output now, but my origin didn't move, so that's what I want. So I need to get that set up on the machine and we'll be ready to go. So let's move over and physically set the laser to where we need it to be. And got our tumbler in there. I'm going to bring the laser out. I'm going to put it directly above the highest point of the tumbler. All right, and then I'm going to move my laser module to the left until I get right there at the edge of where the black and the stainless meet. That is where I want it to be. Before we start it, I do want to confirm that I am mostly level. Like I said, this is a little forgiving. Mostly level. I'm going to go ahead and hit the frame button so that we can frame this thing up. Well, I got to shut the door. I'm going to hit the frame button so we can frame this up. We're going to watch for any kind of wobble or movement that we don't need. I got no wobble, no movement. The framed area is inside the tumbler. So I think we're good. All looks well. Double checking my orientation. The top of my tumbler is to the left. Looking at my graphic is set up to where the top of the tumbler should be to the left. So we're good there. Okay. Double checking speed, 14,000. We're frame. All right, so a few minutes later, and I do mean a few minutes later, it's a 10 watt. It takes a little while. The tumbler has completed. Now, looking at it this way, hopefully the engrave turned out better than it appears. So try not to panic when you remove them and it looks like this. But hopefully it's gonna look a little better once we hit it with a little spray and our magic eraser, of course. So that's the objective. That's the hope that I have. And that's one reason that I like doing a little bit of testing beforehand. You don't want to waste your tumblers. They can be quite pricey, and it just makes life a lot better when you're not having to constantly buy more because you messed them up. So give this another little spritz of some alcohol. And if you ever want to know whether or not you have like cuts on your fingers, spray your hands with alcohol. It's a real good indicator. It'll let you know right where they are, so that you can, you know, maybe not do it next time. So I like being able to take these things in the house and give them a nice bath in the sink before showing them off. Well, we're gonna let you look at this one straight off of the laser, just with nothing but the alcohol. So there you go. And you can see that I've got about the same sheen as the top and the bottom. That's one of the things that I look at a lot of times when people want to send me photos of their tumblers and go, hey, what do you think about this tumbler? They want to just, zoom in on the image, which it's really hard and difficult to tell about an image by a photo. But the one thing that I will say is when you're looking at the tumbler and you're rotating it and the light is reflecting off of it, you want the engrave that you made to be as close as you can get it to the same color as this untapped, uncoated material at the bottom and at the top. So you don't want it to have that gray. You want it to have that silver shine to it. This is a win. This one turned out really good. I think Brandy will like the tumbler. And like I said, I just get so many tumblers from doing these videos for you guys with the Clack Shack logo on it. I figured I'd do something different today. So there you have it. I mean, I don't know that, I mean, it's not the fastest machine, this little guy, but it did give me some good results. And like I said, with this machine for the price of it, I mean, this is probably not, if I was going to do tumblers, this is probably not the route that I would go as far as, like, if you're buying a machine specifically for tumblers. But if you're new to it and you think that tumblers is something that you eventually would like to do, then yes, this machine, like I said, this is probably one of the most bare bones, simplest machines that I've had in the shop so far, past few months, and it did a really, really good job. So that just goes to show you that proper technique, proper setup, patience, a little bit of testing, and even the cheaper machines can make you a good product and make some money. So, like I said, not the fastest, but this is a two-sided engrave on a standard size tumbler. So, yeah, not bad at all. So let's wrap it up, guys. All right, so that's going to be it for tonight, guys. I just wanted to share this with you. Like I said, they sent me out this machine. It's a 10 watt. I had the rotary, had everything I needed, and tumblers is one of those things that a lot of people ask me about. That was one of the things. My machine that I bought originally back in 2021 is up here hanging on the wall, and that is one of the main things that helped me to get started with doing jobs. Tumblers, even though the machine was kind of slow and the setup was a little meticulous, kind of like what we dealt with tonight, I was able to do those tumblers and make enough money to then buy my second machine and then buy more equipment, and it just continued. So although a lot of people would tell you if you're going to do tumblers, you don't need this machine, it's not ideal. Like I said, if you're going to be doing strictly tumblers, then no, this is probably not the machine for you. But this machine is capable of doing all kinds of products, including tumblers. So there you go. A few things that I would like to see Creality fix with their rotary is the ability, of course, to level it. I don't like having to kind of rig the base to get it level like I did. Although it works, it did a good job. If I had another tumbler to do, 5, 10 of them to do, my setup here is solid. Like, it's good to go. I have no problem with, you know, loading another tumbler and then doing another and another and another. I do always like to see, you know, some verification checks to make sure nothing has moved. But other than that, it done a good job. If they would add that tilt knob to this rotary, I think that would be a big help. But all in all, not a bad process. And if you're going to ask me about the little kit that I made, the little jig or holder or whatever you want to call it for the rotary, I do have an Etsy shop, and things like this, I do add those to my Etsy shop so that you guys can download them and use them for your machine. I designed this file that I'm using here specifically to be able to be cut using the Falcon A1, and you can cut it from 3mm material, 1/4 inch material, whichever. If you do 3mm material, you might want to layer 2 layers of it together and kind of glue it, or use some tape and tape them together just to get a little thicker. I used 1/4 inch plate or 1/4 inch material on mine, and it done a really good job. Holds everything together, and you could even leave this on the table. Mine's nice decorative, and I'll show you some video up here. Mine's a nice decorative orange color, and I could leave that on the table if I had this machine set up somewhere and just have it there for when I needed it. That's probably what I would do if this were my machine at home, is I would leave the chuck and everything just kind of ready to throw it together and get it going. So there will be links to the machine, the rotary, the jig, all those things will be down below. So check those out on your way out. And until next time, be safe and have a good day.